Good day, everyone, my viewers all over the world. In today's lesson, I'll be talking about transistors. Everything that you need to know about the word transistor, uh, both its function, effect of a bad transistor, and a lot more. So let's dive in onto the board. So I will be explaining the word transistor one after the other. The word transistor. A transistor is a semiconductor. Again, a transistor is a semiconductor component used to switch or amplify electronic signal in a circuit. A transistor again is a semiconductor component used to switch or amplify electronic signal in a circuit. It is one of the most important components in an iPhone or Android phone because it controls how power and signal move across the motherboard. It controls how signal and power move in the motherboard. For example, when you press your power button in any mobile phone, whether it is Android phone or iPhone, it is the function or the work of a transistor to work, to power on your phone. And anytime you want to power it off, it is the work of transistor as well to power off the phone. For an example, inside your power IC of any mobile phone, it is being made of millions of transistors. If you look at it very well in this aspect, in our old or former television, all those big television that we are using before now, they are being made of big transistor. You will just see a lot of big transistor. You will see a lot of big diode. You will see a lot of big capacitor inside it. But with the help of the technology and microchips, they were able to integrate all those transistor, resistor, capacitor into a single IC. That is what we call why we call it integrated circuits. They integrate everything, all those transistors, into a single IC. Eh? That is what we call an IC, integrated circuit. So the transistor inside this IC will be working for your phone to be power on. When you press your power on, it is the transistor that is inside this IC, is inside the power IC, that will signal for the phone to power on or to power off. I'm just trying to explain the definition of a transistor, that is a semiconductor that is used to switch on or off or amplify electronic signal. This illustration that I just give about this power ICs is an example of how the transistor works. Now, I will now go to the function of transistor. Number one function of a transistor is to switching. It works for switching like on and off of your phone. Another application of a transistor is the increase weak electrical signal to a stronger one. They increase weak electrical signal to a stronger one. Another application of a transistor is in power management, to regulate voltage and current supply to different sections of the motherboard. Another function of a transistor is in signal control. Transistor help in signal control the communication between the IC and components on the motherboard. For example, this is a transistor on my Borneo schematic. I think my viewer can see it. This is an example of a transistor. This is a charging based transistor on Infinix X680. An example of a transistor. This is a charging based transistor on Infinix X680. Alternately, you can see this is working for charging. It regulates charging voltage in this particular phone. So in any transistor, when you check it on schematic, they will represent it with letter Q. So if you want to identify transistor on a motherboard or on a schematic, you will see it with letter Q on any schematic. This is a transistor. Now let's go further into our now test for transistor. How do you test for transistor? How do you test transistor? Now let me show you an example of how you can test for transistor. Like as I've said, that any IC is made of, for example, now like your power IC is made up of millions of transistors. So how do you now test whether the IC or the transistor is bad? Is by checking the capacitor or resistor around the transistor or around the IC. I think you can see with all this, you test it. Let me show you the charging circuits. Charging circuit of this backlight circuit. Backlight circuit. Where it is, where it is, where it is. Backlight circuits. Backlight circuits. Like for example now, this is a charging circuit of this one. This is a transistor. So if you want to test this transistor, whether it is working good or not, or whether it has any problem, you will test it by checking this capacitor around this transistor. The reading, this capacitor will give you the reading of this transistor, whether it is good or bad. That is just a way of checking your transistor. You check it in a diode mode. You can test the capacitor around the transistor for short, and also to check, you can check your schematic as I will show you or board view to compare your reading, whether your reading is okay or not. What are the symptoms, effects of a bad transistor? The number one effect of a bad transistor is the phone will be dead. Are you getting me? The number one effect of a bad transistor is that it can cause the phone to die, to be totally dead. Another effect of a bad transistor is no charging. In this case, that I will show you, if this transistor is bad or it has a disconnection, the phone will not be able to charge in this particular phone. Other bad effect of a bad transistor is, if you want to know whether a transistor is bad or not, it can be overheating. If you want to check this, you need to use maybe your rosin, or you can use your thermal camera to check, or you can still use your hand to feel. But I don't usually tell my customer to tell the engineer to use their hand to feel, because the capacitor around it might be shorting and the transistor will be overheating because of this capacitor. So the only way you can use to test it whether it is good or bad is by using your rosin or your thermal camera to know which of this transistor is bad. Other bad effect of a bad transistor is it can cause no backlight. It can cause what? No backlight in any phone. If the transistor that is working for the backlight section of that particular phone is bad, it can cause no backlight. Another effect of a bad transistor is that it can cause boot loop. The phone can be starting by itself, especially on iPhone. If iPhone meets anything bad or any capacitor or any water damage, it can cause it inside if it breach the leg of all these transistor in an iPhone, it can cause a boot looping. It is very common on iPhone. Another effect of a bad transistor is it can short the power rail. If this transistor is bad now, it can short the power rail like VSYS or VPH line. It can short it due to effect of a bad transistor. So, my follower, I think you might have learned one or two in today's lesson. I think you might have learned one or two in today's lesson. So I will tell you, I will always beg you and implore you to like, follow my channel, and share for other people to also benefit from it. So at this junction J, transistor T, transistor Q, diode D, I will say share, like, and follow for more. God bless you. Thank you.